You're listening to The End of the Road in Michigan, where Michigan history meets real people and real places. Today, we're heading to the tip of Michigan's thumb, to a village where Lake Huron meets local legacy. On a quiet street in Port Austin stands a 150-year-old Victorian brick house. It's called the Smith-Culhane House, and its story stretches from the Civil War to the lumber boom, to a new life as a bed and breakfast, and now, back again to a private home. Let's walk through its story. It began in the early 1870s. Port Austin was a growing lumber town at the edge of Huron County, fueled by pine forests and promise. It briefly served as the county seat. Lake Street, then a dirt road, was lined with the homes of merchants, mill operators, and county officials. Richard Smith was one of them. A Scottish immigrant and Union Army veteran, Smith arrived in Port Austin in 1865, just months after the Civil War ended. By 1871, he had purchased 120 acres and built a permanent home, a red brick Victorian with detailed woodwork and tall gabled roofs. This was the beginning of what we now call the Smith-Culhane House. Smith quickly became a civic figure. He worked as the Huron County Surveyor, later served as Register of Deeds, and opened a bookstore and abstract office downtown. The house stood as a sign of his status and his investment in the future of Port Austin. But the Smiths didn't stay long. In 1883, Richard moved his family back to Bad Axe. 2 years later, he sold the house to another immigrant-turned-entrepreneur, Cornelius Culhane. Culhane was Irish, and by the 1880s, he was on his way to becoming a big name in Michigan's lumber industry. As a logging jobber, he ran timber crews across the Upper Peninsula, particularly in Luce and Chippewa counties. During peak logging seasons, he supervised entire operations out of Newberry, rail lines, camps, workers, the whole thing. Back in Port Austin, this brick house became the Culhane family's summer home. But in 1903, tragedy struck. Culhane was killed in a rail accident while overseeing logging in the UP. His body was returned to Port Austin, and he was buried at St. Michael's Cemetery. The house remained in the family until 1938. What about the house itself? It's a two-story upright and wing Victorian design, common in 19th century Michigan, rare today. Built on a stone foundation, the brickwork glows reddish-orange. Its ornate wooden trim, bay windows, and symmetrical lines draw immediate attention. Inside, it's even more remarkable. 9-foot doors, inlaid hardwood floors, pressed plaster wall finishes, and solid oak trim throughout. This house wasn't just built to last. It was built to be admired. Even the original slaughterhouse out back still stands, a quiet relic of a time when families butchered their own meat just steps from the kitchen. From the 1940s onward, the house wore many hats. It was a boarding house, a guest home, an antique shop, even a photography studio. By the 1980s, it sat empty, worn but intact. Then came Carolyn and Jack Waller. They bought the house in 1985. By the next year, they opened it as a 5-room bed and breakfast called Lake Street Manor. They restored the original architecture, kept the period feel, and added modern touches. Carolyn loved the home so much, she said she fell in love the moment she saw it. Travelers did too. Over the next few decades, guests returned year after year. Some became close friends. Others came just once, but remembered it for life. In 2014, the house was added to the National Register of Historic Places under its historic name, the Smith-Culhane House. That recognition wasn't just about architecture. It was about the lives lived here, the immigrant soldier, the lumber boss, the innkeepers, and the visitors who made it a home. In 2021, Lake Street Manor quietly closed. The house is once again a private residence. For those still wanting a historic stay in Port Austin, there's a bed and breakfast just up the road, also in a mid-19th century Victorian home, 2 blocks from the farmer's market. But the Smith-Culhane House? It's still standing, still telling stories, just a little more quietly now. Thanks for listening to Voices of the Thumb. For more stories like this one, visit thumbwind.com. And if you enjoyed today's episode, share it with a friend or leave us a review. It helps others find their way to Michigan's thumb. Until next time, stay curious and stay connected.